changes that's happening around us require us to have a new strategy. How do we take the Singapore economy forward? There are lots of opportunities, but there are also challenges. For education and training policy, this has deep implications. We need to ask ourselves, what new skills do we need to succeed in this new future?
Minister, thanks for joining us. We all know that the global economic landscape is transforming, and this will have a significant impact on our future jobs. What would the implications be on education and training?
Yes, the world is changing, but what's new? It has always been changing. From the day the steamship was invented, to oil and gas, to aeroplanes, to electricity, it has fundamentally changed our way of life and changed businesses. We are living in the era of IT revolution. The change that today we are witnessing started with the PC, the laptop, the smartphones, the internet. Now everything is coming together. That's one big change. It's not really about Uber and Uberization of services. That's just a small chapter in this whole IT revolution that we are seeing. Second big change is ourselves. In Singapore, we are an aging society. And we must make sure that we remain youthful, young, vibrant, despite our population having more grey hair. I think the third thing is to note that the region is not the same as before. Developed markets are not the same as before. We must remember we are a little red dot, a small place. So long as we move faster than the others, we can earn a very good living for ourselves. But speed and our decisiveness to act is of the essence.
Technology is speeding up the rate of change, the result of which is that automation will create different types of jobs. Yes, engineering skills will still be needed because more will be done by the machines, but humans have to take on more value-based activities. That means, what is the right question or the right problem to solve? Not necessarily just solving the problem, because the machines will take over solving some of those problems.
Attitudes are as important as skills. I mean, the education field. One thing we try to do is to help our students have confidence. Perhaps in the past, when we have full employment, maybe there's a bit of complacency. But now, when we talk about this transformation, disruption, we move from complacency to fear. What we need to do with students, young people, is for them to see, despite all these changes, there are a lot of opportunities. One of the ways I help our students is to ask them just to look at our parents' generation. They face changes as disruptive as we are facing now.
Throughout history, waves of technological advancements have changed lives fundamentally. All our parents went through those changes.
Minister, there's a lot of uncertainty in the future, so how do you think that we can develop our skills in preparation for the future?
There has to be a reform of the entire education system, dial back the overemphasis on academic grades, open up the options for different students to have different pathways, introduce early career and education guidance down to the secondary school so that there's a facilitated process for students to understand their strengths and weaknesses and discover their passions and interests. Then have a system that encourages them to learn throughout their life, that will stay with them their whole life. And that's the foundation and extremely important. Lifelong learning, resilience, enterprise, an international outlook, these are all fundamental skills.
I see that happening in my school, actually. We just recently wrapped up a project last semester where we had to create our own brand. We did a lot of product development, and we came up with designs, and we communicated with people like craftsmen. It really drives that entrepreneurial spirit in students.
So what skills do you need? I think there are two levels. First level is what basic values are most important for you to adapt to this world. Second is the skills that serve you best are often the skills you are best at. It is not just the IT industry that is growing. Despite the fact that the current change is an IT revolution, it doesn't mean that everyone must learn coding. In Silicon Valley, some companies have stopped hiring people from coding school. What they want is a good IT degree. Every single sector has the potential to do well. if we attract the right people with the right skills, with the right attitude and mindset, and seize the opportunities.
Education cannot train for jobs. I think education must extract out attitude. Yes, there are some basic skills that education has to take care of. But in reality, when you're looking for a job, it's your interests, your skills together.
I think we must not forget that by having the right attitude, we will have confidence.
The whole concept of finding out what you're good at and interested in is a pragmatic pursuit. When you speak to young students today, that usually resonates. They understand. The next question is this: how do I convince my parents? Yeah.
The education process should allow children to explore widely, lay out as options all the varied pathways for our students to reach possible jobs of the future. Personally, for my children, I tell them very openly, I have no idea what jobs will be available for you in 20 years' time. However, my job is to extract all your interests, guide you on your strengths, help you to compensate your weaknesses. And when you appear in the job market, you will have as many options as possible.
Another perspective is don't look at just tomorrow, but the next 10, 20 years. Many of us change our career many times. So we take that attitude of continuous learning and continuous adaptation. And it's okay that I make a wrong choice today. Not because I want to make a wrong choice, but because I don't fully understand my passion. The notion that we must know what are the right skills to be trained in may not be the right way. In fact, we must know what we are good at. And if we continue to excel in what we are good at, we will do well. We're all different, so we would be good at different things. I'm a bit concerned about focusing on the latest in robotics. Yes, we need to look at them, but we don't want to tell everybody that's the future. I know the discussion now is a lot about new things happening, the changes, the skills required, but I'm a little concerned as an educator. Many of my students think, I get a degree, my job is guaranteed. I don't want them to think if I get a proficiency certificate in a particular competency, say digital marketing, I would be guaranteed a job for life. What's happening in the world changes, but what I'm good at, passionate about, may not change on a day-to-day basis.
The fashion industry, it works at a very fast pace. So people always have to push out new designs. So to keep people interested in their products and the brand itself.
Will you want to work overseas at some
Yes,
point?
definitely. Because that's how we grow and that's how we develop our skills further. Every opportunity that you go away from home is an opportunity for you to learn. And then after that, I can bring this knowledge back home and then share it with people here. It's very important to always be adventurous. And I think it's very important to encourage the students of this generation to go overseas and explore the international market.
Maybe not all Singaporeans, especially those in the workforce already, share that desire to go overseas and work. How do you, for example, Andrew, encourage your employees to take on overseas postings?
You have to include employees into the goals of the enterprise. The strategy of the company needs to be made very clear. And once you have the goals socialized within the whole organization, then you can position every job as being valuable and match it to the skills of the employees. That means they will understand that hardship posting has a goal, has a purpose. And of course, you have to pick the right people, those who have that enterprising spirit, the very adventurous ones. If every worker, every employee understands their strengths and weaknesses, their passions, which are normally associated with strengths, then the whole process works itself out rather smoothly.
Andrew, you're an employer. Besides qualifications, what else do you look for?
We're never hiring for today. Just like the economy, we are always preparing for tomorrow. That's why the behavior, the attitude is important, because the management of a company needs to have the ability to forecast what are the future problems that need to be addressed in industry. It's the future problems. It's not today's problems. Today's problems can be automated, they can be systemized, they can be put into processes, and they need to be done. But the real differentiator is actually defining what are the future issues that need to be solved and what type of resources do you have. Therefore, the education system is very important.
Educators can do certain things. But when you talk about future needs, We really need to work with the industry. When I started my career, companies were prepared to recruit fresh graduates and provide a lot of training. But I have seen a change the last 10 years. It was not a good thing. Very short term, we need industry training as
So instant noodles syndrome.
competitive.
Everything is instant.
This is true.
Yeah.
Industry definitely has a role, and there are some companies that do that. But education also has an obligation to bring out graduates who are useful and attractive to industry.
So to do that,
here,
we have to work with the industry.
And here again,
through
I'm not even
real-world
talking
projects.
about being prepared to work from day one, which is part of the workforce that we require.
Because you can obviously tell Casey is the educator and Andrew's from the industry.
Yes, yes.
So the industry should do more and Andrew says educator should do more. I enjoy listening to the educator and industry leaders sparring each other. But they say the same thing on this count, which is it's no longer the skills, but the values, the fundamental skills that you are equipped with. A lot has to do with not just yourself, but also mindset, how society sees what is success, your own sense of resilience as our parents have displayed when they went through disruption, how you pick yourself up, take stock of what you learn and reapply in a new area, in a different context. The first mindset, we cannot just be a control tower economy. It means we are corporate HQ monitoring things, reading reports. We must be a runway economy where resources, people are put together and you make it happen. The second mindset revolves around the idea of internationalization. The more we have that international mindset and look at the region and the world as our market, the less dichotomy and less contradiction you have in terms of opportunities out there, not in Singapore. We must have a workforce that's prepared to venture out. Just as MNCs ventured out of their home countries and came to Singapore, and came to Asia, now we must start to see the reverse. And third, and probably may well be the most important, is values of inclusivity. That means whatever we do, we take care of each other. We're still a society. There will be weaker people, less advantaged, less skilled. How do we bring them all along? Because no single sector, no single company exists alone by itself. Not possible. Even a big company like Apple, so many suppliers, so many logistics, component suppliers, engineering companies surround them. They bring along a whole big community. And likewise, for the successful, they have this role to play.
Casey, we've heard about internationalization and inclusivity. How do you encourage that within the students?
We encourage our students to do internships in other countries. But the main thing is to instill in them a certain confidence. And also I want to steer them away from this notion of there's a job market and you train yourself for the job market. We want our students to think that the world is difficult. You need to know what you're good at. And if you believe in something, you can actually create your own opportunities.
So what LaSalle is doing is that they're giving us the opportunities to do internships with companies, both locally and internationally, so that we understand what we are good at and how we can develop these skills.
Internships will become more and more prevalent for students. Hopefully in 5 years' time or by 2020, all polytechnic students, all university students will be able to do some form of internship at some point during their education process. And to take a step further, there will be programs that are cooperative in nature. It's a joint effort between industry as well as the university. So half the students' time is spent studying in the university or polytechnic, the other half is out in the industry, applying what they learn and learning on the job and bringing back to the classroom. More of our universities and polytechnics are going to roll out such kind of courses.
Do you think Singapore students lack that creativity, that courage to be enterprising?
We create this false dichotomy sometimes. Innovation, creativity means a little bit of anarchy, don't follow rules, break the mold. But creativity is a form of discipline. If you think that I ditch everything that is about this world and then I go about doing my own thing and therefore I'm creative, usually not.
There's also a very strong tendency to follow the rules. We have to bridge this gap between creativity and innovation and following the rules. One of the things you can use to bridge that gap is to rewrite the rules. That means we always follow rules, but allow the opportunity for students to write the rules. I give you an example. The school that I went to insisted on sports on Wednesday afternoons. Now, I looked at the list of sports available and actually I disliked them. So what I did was I found a group of students willing to come with me a teacher willing to sign up as a sponsor, and we created our own sports. So did I break the rules? Yes, I didn't do any of the sports on that list, but rewrote the rules and put my sports in. Innovation is not a concept for chaos and anarchy.
Minister, it all sounds very good theoretically, but what about the practical concerns like financial stability?
That is always on top of every practical Singaporean's mind. But who are we now competing against? Around the region, there are cheaper places for companies to invest and for jobs to be created. Do we therefore compete with them head on? No, the practical response is to differentiate ourselves. Create jobs and get jobs, offer something different. Offer a workforce that's resilient, that's adaptive, that can support change, that can take ideas, take new products, and be able to sell it to the world. That will differentiate us, and that will help us secure the jobs we need. We sometimes assume that we are only passionate in things that is non-work related or cannot earn us a living. People like role models. We grow up looking at role models and we want to be like them, successful. Many kids grow up wanting to be accountants, doctors, lawyers, engineers because of their parents. So the things we are exposed to usually point us towards industries that are actually doing well. I don't see a huge contradiction between pursuing passion and satisfying our practical needs to earn a living and have financial security. A small proportion may want to do something totally tangential. They have to make their choices. Cheryl, for example, if she's going to do fashion, we don't have 4 seasons. So she has to step out to countries or cities around the world to find new markets. Then she can fully realize her potential.
You want to go into fashion, maybe 10 years from now, you might be doing something completely different. I think we really shouldn't frame what's practical and what's aspirational as a choice and making a decision today for the rest of my life. By all means, I need money, I go for the job that I may not feel 100% happy about, but I should still put everything into the job. I learn from the job, and from there I can move on to the next stage of my life. We need to go back to thinking that life until the end is always about learning and experimenting.
That's another excellent point. Some people have something they are very passionate about, but they can't pursue it. The opportunity didn't arise, and so they do something else. But it's just as important that we love what we do rather than always do what we love. And often than not, we land with something and learn about it, and you develop an interest.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, your food's here.
Sorry, who ordered?
Thank you.
Huh? How come you didn't collect any money?
In closing, I'd like to hear the panelists' views on what we've discussed today.
As competition gets more intense, innovation is absolutely essential. It is a key element for differentiation. It's not only technical, it's not only about products. It's also about business processes and business models. Question the constraints, and from there, you can build new ideas. So you have to create a culture whereby innovative people are respected, they're looked up to. I'm very optimistic that Singapore will remain an excellent place to do business, not only for Singapore and the region, but globally.
I agree, innovation is very important, but innovation is only a means to an end. Usually when you want to solve a problem, you need to come up with new ways to tackle the problems. In the end, you must focus, you must bring some services, products, solutions to the world, and someone is prepared to pay you for that. You must focus on meeting society's needs. Then the innovation would come laterally for you to meet that demand and stand out amongst competition. So education these days is no longer about we telling the students what you need or what is right for you. They must also be given the room and the autonomy to do things differently. Just like the economic sectors and society in general, we must encourage diversity. You cannot learn for your students. And when the students know how to learn, then I think they're pretty well set up for life.
So what I like about my education system that I received is that we're very project-based. We do a lot of teamwork, and I like that because it's not test-orientated. I was able to interact with my peers and also analyze different situations in terms of projects and assignments. That's how you develop the skills that are important for the future and be innovators. Innovation is not creating something entirely new or entirely out the box. It's just that focusing on one specific thing that's already existing and then just changing it a little, altering it a little to have a bit of differentiation to appeal to the market.
There's a Chinese saying, 熟能生巧. When you are so familiar with something, then you can be creative.
It's really great that the government is being very supportive and seeing the need for the push for students to expand globally and not afraid of failure. I think it's an amazing thing. I'm also very excited for what's to come.
Minister, do you think the message of the importance of being prepared for the future economy is getting through?
Singaporeans are very practical people. To be prepared for the future is instinctive. For the system to adapt to a new future, that will take time. That will take a generation. I hope that we succeed and we do well for Singapore. We have to support enterprise innovation in a big way. One major factor is actually government regulations. When it comes to new ideas, new forms of services and innovation, regulation should facilitate that changing process, allowing it to happen, but regulate it some way. Another big factor that we have to look at is actually government procurement. We should have flexibility. Sometimes you may want to first give the freelancers a chance. They have different ideas. If everything goes through a tender, they have no chance. A more enlightened form of government procurement, I think, will allow innovation to thrive. We have a generation, they are just like the first pioneer generation that created Singapore. That was the most enterprising generation we have had. And I really hope that we can create a new pioneer generation for a new era.
In a world in which technological disruptions and advances are transforming the economy faster than we can imagine, we face the challenge of creating a top-quality workforce with deep and diverse views. Besides investments in education and training pathways, it is also about nurturing a sense of enterprise, daring to dream big, and reaching out to a world of possibilities. Join us next week for another insightful discussion on the future economy.